Russia just reported another devastating day on the battlefield, and the numbers are staggering. Over 880 troops lost in just 24 hours, more than 650 drones destroyed, and the total casualty count has now crossed 1.2 million since this war began. What does this mean for the conflict moving forward, and why are these losses accelerating? Before we continue, tell us in the comments where are you watching from. We'd love to know. So here's what we know as of January 10th, 2026. Ukraine's General Staff just released their latest battlefield update, and it paints a picture of intense, relentless combat that shows no signs of slowing down. In a single day, Russian forces lost 880 personnel. That's not a small skirmish. That's the equivalent of an entire battalion being removed from the fight in just 24 hours. But the personnel losses are only part of the story. The drone numbers are absolutely critical here. Ukraine destroyed 653 operational tactical UAVs in one day. Think about that for a second. Over 650 drones. These aren't just expensive pieces of equipment, they're essential tools for modern warfare. They provide reconnaissance, targeting data, and sometimes even direct strikes. Losing that many in a single day means Russia is either throwing everything they have at Ukraine's defenses, or their tactics are becoming increasingly desperate. And this brings us to a massive milestone that can't be ignored. Since February 24, 2022, Russia's total estimated losses have reached approximately 1,217,810 personnel. Let that sink in. Over 1.2 million people. Whether killed, wounded, or missing, that's an entire generation being consumed by this conflict. Now, you might be wondering, how accurate are these numbers? Ukraine reports them, but military analysts worldwide have been tracking independent estimates, and while exact figures vary, the trend is undeniable. Russia is sustaining catastrophic losses at a rate that would break most military forces. Let's talk about the hardware for a moment, because these numbers tell their own story. 4 more tanks destroyed yesterday. That might not sound like much, but when you look at the total, 11,530 tanks since the war began, you start to see the full picture. Russia started this invasion with one of the largest tank forces in the world. Now, they're pulling Soviet-era equipment out of storage, retrofitting machines that were built decades ago just to keep their armored units operational. Artillery systems, 16 more gone yesterday. The total now sits at 35,908. Think about what that means logistically. Every artillery piece destroyed is not just metal and electronics, it's months of training for the crew. It's supply chains disrupted, it's ammunition stockpiles that suddenly have nowhere to go. And here's something that should really make you think. 18 cruise missiles were shot down in a single day. Russia has now lost 4,155 cruise missiles total since the invasion began. These are precision weapons, expensive weapons, weapons that take time and resources to manufacture. The fact that they're still launching them in these numbers shows they're committed to this fight, but at what cost? Have you been following this conflict closely? What surprises you most about these numbers? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's zoom in on where the actual fighting happened yesterday. The General Staff reported that Ukrainian forces repelled 165 separate attacks. 165. That's not a quiet day. That's constant, grinding combat across multiple fronts, with Russian forces probing for weaknesses, trying to break through defensive lines, and Ukrainian defenders holding their ground. The Pokrovsk direction saw the heaviest action. 39 attacks in areas around Arzin, Shakhove, Nikanorovka, Rodinsky, Mirnograd, and several other settlements. This isn't random. Pokrovsk is strategically important. It's a logistics hub. It connects critical supply routes, and controlling it would give Russia a significant operational advantage in the Eastern theater. But here's what happened instead. Ukrainian defenders eliminated 85 Russian soldiers in that sector alone, 60 of them killed outright. They also destroyed a tank, an MLRS system, and 68 drones just in one area. That's surgical, effective defense. That's a military force that knows the terrain, understands the stakes, and is willing to fight for every meter of ground. What we're seeing here is a pattern that's been developing for months now. Russia continues to launch massive offensives, throwing waves of personnel and equipment at Ukrainian positions. They gain small pockets of territory sometimes, yes, but the cost is absolutely brutal. For every village taken, for every road secured, they're paying in blood and machinery at rates that would make any military planner question the strategy. And this raises a critical question. How long can Russia sustain this? Military analysts have been asking this for 2 years now, and yet the fighting continues. Russia has a larger population than Ukraine, they have deeper reserves, they have industrial capacity that's been redirected entirely toward war production, but numbers don't tell the whole story. Morale matters, training matters, the will to fight matters. Ukraine's defenders are fighting on their own soil, protecting their homes, their families, their future. That's a motivation that's hard to break. Meanwhile, Russian forces are fighting a war that many of them don't fully understand, in a country that isn't threatening Russia's existence, for objectives that keep shifting. The drone warfare aspect is particularly revealing. Ukraine destroyed over 650 drones in one day. That's a staggering number, and it shows two things. First, Russia is deploying drones in massive quantities, trying to overwhelm Ukrainian air defenses and electronic warfare systems. Second, Ukraine has become incredibly effective at countering them, whether through jamming, shooting them down, or using their own drones in counter-swarm tactics. They're neutralizing a key Russian advantage. And let's not forget the broader context here. Russia also lost 84 vehicles and fuel tanks yesterday. That's mobility, that's logistics, that's the ability to move troops, supplies, ammunition to the front lines. Modern warfare runs on fuel. Armies move on wheels and tracks. Destroy enough of that, and even if you have troops ready to fight, they can't get where they need to go. What do you think happens next? Can Russia keep up this pace? Let us know your predictions below. The air defense numbers are equally important. Ukraine reports that Russia has lost 1,269 anti-aircraft systems since the war began. These are the systems designed to protect Russian forces from Ukrainian drones and aircraft. Every one destroyed makes it easier for Ukraine to operate in the skies, to conduct reconnaissance, to strike targets behind enemy lines. And speaking of air power, Russia has lost 434 aircraft and 347 helicopters total since February 2022. These aren't cheap, replaceable assets. Modern combat aircraft take years to build. Pilots take even longer to train properly. Lose enough of them and your air force becomes a shadow of what it once was. There's also the naval dimension. Russia has lost 28 warships and boats, plus 2 submarines. For a country that prides itself on naval power, especially in the Black Sea, these losses are humiliating and strategically significant. They've effectively ceded control of large portions of the Black Sea to Ukraine, a country that barely had a navy when this war started. The special equipment losses, 4,039 units total, include electronic warfare systems, command vehicles, engineering equipment, all the specialized tools that make a modern military function. These aren't things you can replace overnight. They require expertise to operate, they require maintenance, they require integration with other systems. So when we step back and look at the full picture, what are we really seeing? We're watching a military superpower, or what used to be considered one, grinding itself down in a war of attrition that it may not be able to win. The losses are unsustainable by any historical measure. The economic cost is devastating. The geopolitical consequences are reshaping global alliances and power structures. But the human cost is what should matter most. Over 1.2 million casualties. Families destroyed, lives ended or forever changed, communities torn apart. And for what? territorial gains that are measured in kilometers, not hundreds of miles, strategic objectives that keep shifting as reality sets in. Ukraine continues to fight because they have no choice. This is existential for them. Every day of resistance is another day of survival, another day closer to the possibility of victory, or at least a sustainable peace. Russia continues to fight because, well, that's the question, isn't it? Pride, strategic ambition, fear of what defeat would mean domestically, the inability to back down after coming this far? As we watch these daily casualty reports, as we see the numbers climb higher and higher, we have to remember that each one represents a human being, a son, a daughter, a parent, a friend. The statistics are staggering, but they're also deeply personal tragedies multiplied 1,000,000 times over. The world is watching. The question now is how long this can continue and what it will take to finally bring it to an end. One thing is certain. The cost of this war will be felt for generations, no matter how or when it concludes. You've been listening to The Military Point. Stay sharp, stay informed, and we'll catch you next time.